This plant, this long grass-like green halmy plant is called Vallisneria. And in this video I want to tell you how to take proper care of Vallisneria, how to propagate this plant, what water parameters you should try and achieve in your aquarium, and I'll give you some general tips on how to grow this plant and make sure it can thrive in your freshwater, tropical planted aquarium. So let's jump straight in. When you buy this plant, it will look something like this. This is the bottom of the plant, so it's upside down, but it will have this right there. So there are some roots present, and then you will get this beautiful, very long aquarium plant. Now, this plant, first let's go over the propagation of this plant. So Vallisneria actually propagates through shooting out or by shooting out runners through the substrate and then growing a new plant from that runner. So you've got to imagine this plant is planted in my aquarium just like this. Then when it's doing well, it will shoot out a new shoot along the substrate. It will move like this, and then when it's a couple of inches away from the main plant, it will shoot up a new plant, and you've got multiple Vallisneria plants growing. That makes this plant such a great, beautiful background plant. Actually, I've often used this to hide, for example, the filter intake or filter output or heater in my aquarium. The next thing is how to feed this plant, because plants need fertilizer. Now this plant, as you can see from the roots of the plant, is going to grow a pretty good root system, and therefore we can classify it as a primarily root feeding aquarium plant. And that means it's going to need either a nutrient rich substrate, or you're going to have to add root taps to your tank. Now I've got very fine gravel and it's got no problem growing in this. I've also have a friend who's growing it in a little bit more rough gravel, but avoid the chunky gravel at all costs with the sharp edges. Also for your fish, for the health of your fish. Now this plant is also great at growing in sand. Just plain sand is fine as long as you also add root taps to make sure the sand contains nutrients for the plants. You don't have to add additional CO2 to your aquarium, and that makes it a great beginner plant. It needs moderate lighting, very bright high lighting. You can avoid that for this plant, you don't need it, but it doesn't do very well under low light. So make sure you keep your lighting at a medium, moderate level of lighting. Then how can you trim Vallisneria? These grassy haulms will grow very tall. There are a couple of different varieties. If you've got an aquarium that's sized similar to mine, make sure you do not get the jungle Vallisneria, because they grow very long. They grow like almost half as tall as I am, and they will outgrow this aquarium very quickly. This one, the Vallisneria spiralis, doesn't grow that tall, and that's great, but sometimes you still want to trim the tops of these long grassy green haulms. For that you're going to need sharp scissors. Don't just rip off the top of the plants, because in that case the entire leaf will die back. Instead, make sure you use scissors to create a sharp, clean cut. Then it's important that you know this plant is the right plant for you, because actually there are quite a lot of beginner plants available. I've got a video where I also talk about the Vallisneria plant, but I compare it to many other beginner live plants, and they are also equally affordable, equally common, so also available in your local fish stores. And maybe there are other plants that can serve or can make a better background plant for your aquarium. So make sure you head over to that video. It will pop up on either corners on the screen. Make sure you check it out. And there I really compare the different aspects of all these plants. And then you can decide whether this plant is for you. I always recommend doing your research before buying anything in our hobby. For plants, you can buy plants that grow way too tall for your aquarium, or you can buy plants that need additional CO2 or that just don't fit your aquarium. So therefore, do your research, head over to that other video. If you've got any questions about Vallisneria, make sure to drop a question in the comment section. I'll be more than willing to answer that question for you. And I'll see you guys over at that other video. Cheers.